Imagine, if you will, a moment in human history, not of slow, arduous ascent from primitive beginnings, but of a dazzling, almost instantaneous leap. A civilization seemingly conjured from the fertile mud of the Mesopotamian plains, blossoming into full, bewildering complexity, with no obvious gradual antecedents. This was Sumer, the crucible of civilization, a name that echoes with the profound mystery of a beginning so abrupt, so rich, it defies our conventional understanding of historical progression. For centuries, the narrative painted a picture of humanity's slow climb, a painstaking linear evolution from hunter-gatherer bands to settled agricultural communities, eventually culminating in the first rudimentary cities. Yet, in the land between the Tigris and Euphrates, around 4500 BCE, something entirely different occurred. There was no long discernible preamble of villages slowly coalescing into towns, no clear archaeological trail of trial and error leading to the intricate societal structures that suddenly appeared. Instead, Sumer emerged as if fully formed, a radiant jewel in the harsh cradle of the desert, an enigma that continues to challenge our most cherished assumptions about humanity's journey. The sophistication of Sumerian society was, and remains, astonishing, a testament to a people whose ingenuity pulsed through every facet of their lives. Cities like Uruk, and Eridu arose not as organic agglomerations of huts and homesteads, but as meticulously planned metropolises, complete with grid-like street layouts, monumental public buildings, and sophisticated drainage systems. These were not mere settlements, they were urban centers of profound complexity, housing populations that numbered in the tens of thousands, thriving hubs of commerce, culture, and governance. Their public works were colossal undertakings, none more awe-inspiring than the ziggurats, towering, terraced temple mountains constructed from millions of sun-baked bricks, scraping the heavens and serving as focal points for their spiritual and civic life. These monumental structures, often adorned with glazed tiles and intricately carved friezes, were not merely feats of engineering. They were expressions of a profound societal cohesion, requiring centralized authority, vast labor organization, and an advanced understanding of architecture and logistics. This speaks to an early human capacity for large-scale environmental modification that would not be paralleled for millennia. But the Sumerians' genius extended far beyond the tangible achievements of architecture and infrastructure. They were intellectual pioneers, laying the groundwork for fundamental disciplines that continue to shape our world. Perhaps their most enduring legacy is cuneiform, the world's first true writing system. Emerging from earlier pictographic forms, this intricate system of wedge-shaped marks, impressed into wet clay tablets, allowed for the recording of laws, epic poems, administrative records, and scientific observations. Cuneiform was not mere communication, it was the birth of recorded history, a revolutionary leap that allowed knowledge to be accumulated, codified, and transmitted across generations, transcending the ephemeral nature of oral tradition. Its complexity suggests not a slow evolution, but a remarkably advanced conceptualization of language and abstract thought. Their mathematical prowess was equally astounding. The Sumerians developed a sexagesimal, or base 60 numerical system, a system that, remarkably, still influences our division of time and circles today. We count 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and 360 degrees in a circle, direct echoes of Sumerian arithmetic. This was not simply a system for counting sheep or measuring grain. It was a sophisticated mathematical framework capable of complex calculations, essential for their astronomical observations, architectural feats, and land surveying. Imagine, if you will, a moment in human history, not of slow, arduous ascent from primitive beginnings, but of a dazzling, almost instantaneous leap. A civilization seemingly conjured from the fertile mud of the Mesopotamian plains, blossoming into full, bewildering complexity, with no obvious gradual antecedents. This was Sumer, the crucible of civilization, a name that echoes with the profound mystery of a beginning so abrupt, so rich, it defies our conventional understanding of historical progression. For centuries, the narrative painted a picture of humanity's slow climb, a painstaking linear evolution from hunter-gatherer bands to settled agricultural communities, eventually culminating in the first rudimentary cities. Yet, in the land between the Tigris and Euphrates, around 4500 BCE, something entirely different occurred. There was no long discernible preamble of villages slowly coalescing into towns, no clear archaeological trail of trial and error leading to the intricate societal structures that suddenly appeared. Instead, Sumer emerged as if fully formed, a radiant jewel in the harsh cradle of the desert, an enigma that continues to challenge our most cherished assumptions about humanity's journey. The sophistication of Sumerian society was, and remains, astonishing, a testament to a people whose ingenuity pulsed through every facet of their lives. Cities like Uruk, and Eridu arose not as organic agglomerations of huts and homesteads, but as meticulously planned metropolises, complete with grid-like street layouts, monumental public buildings, and sophisticated drainage systems. These were not mere settlements, they were urban centers of profound complexity, housing populations that numbered in the tens of thousands, thriving hubs of commerce, culture, and governance. Their public works were colossal undertakings, none more awe-inspiring than the ziggurats, towering, terraced temple mountains constructed from millions of sun-baked bricks, scraping the heavens and serving as focal points for their spiritual and civic life. These monumental structures, often adorned with glazed tiles and intricately carved friezes, were not merely feats of engineering. They were expressions of a profound societal cohesion, requiring centralized authority, vast labor organization, and an advanced understanding of architecture and logistics. This speaks to an early human capacity for large-scale environmental modification that would not be paralleled for millennia. But the Sumerians' genius extended far beyond the tangible achievements of architecture and infrastructure. They were intellectual pioneers, laying the groundwork for fundamental disciplines that continue to shape our world. Perhaps their most enduring legacy is cuneiform, the world's first true writing system. Emerging from earlier pictographic forms, this intricate system of wedge-shaped marks, impressed into wet clay tablets, allowed for the recording of laws, epic poems, administrative records, and scientific observations. Cuneiform was not mere communication, it was the birth of recorded history, a revolutionary leap that allowed knowledge to be accumulated, codified, and transmitted across generations, transcending the ephemeral nature of oral tradition. Its complexity suggests not a slow evolution, but a remarkably advanced conceptualization of language and abstract thought. Their mathematical prowess was equally astounding. The Sumerians developed a sexagesimal, or base 60 numerical system, a system that, remarkably, still influences our division of time and circles today. We count 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and 360 degrees in a circle, direct echoes of Sumerian arithmetic. This was not simply a system for counting sheep or measuring grain. It was a sophisticated mathematical framework capable of complex calculations, essential for their astronomical observations, architectural feats, and land surveying. And indeed, their eyes were turned skyward with a precision that bewilders modern scholars. Sumerian astronomy was uncannily advanced. They meticulously charted the movements of celestial bodies, not just identifying constellations, but tracking the intricate ballet of planets, distinguishing them from fixed stars. Their astronomical tables were remarkably accurate, demonstrating a deep understanding of planetary orbits. Some interpretations of ancient Sumerian texts, particularly those regarding cosmology, even speak of an additional planet beyond Neptune, a distant celestial body often referred to as Nibiru, knowledge that, if accurately interpreted from these ancient accounts, would utterly defy the limited observational capabilities we attribute to pre-telescopic civilizations. Moreover, there is tantalizing evidence to suggest an awareness of the precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon that takes approximately 26,000 years to complete a full cycle, a vast cosmic timescale that begs the question of how such a concept could have been grasped without centuries of recorded, highly precise astronomical data. Their mastery also extended into the very elements of the Earth. The Sumerians were accomplished metallurgists, working with a range of metals including copper, silver, gold, and tin. They pioneered the use of bronze, an alloy that revolutionized tools and weaponry, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of material science and chemical processes. Their craftsmanship in jewelry and artistic metalwork reveals not just skill, but an aesthetic sensibility that rivals cultures millennia later. And it is here, in this dazzling explosion of unprecedented brilliance, the simultaneous emergence of urban planning, legal systems, advanced irrigation, monumental architecture, writing, sophisticated mathematics, precision astronomy, and advanced metallurgy, that the profound mystery of Sumer truly begins to deepen. Where were the slow, faltering steps? Where was the long, evolutionary preamble? The archaeological record showing the gradual, piecemeal development of these complex systems. Our conventional linear historical development dictates a slow, arduous progression of innovations, each building incrementally upon the last. Yet Sumer appears to burst forth onto the stage of history, seemingly bypassing millennia of slow societal maturation, presenting a fully functional, highly advanced civilization almost ex nihilo. The question is not merely how they achieved such complexity, but why it appeared with such startling suddenness. Mainstream archaeology grapples with this anomaly, often attributing it to a unique confluence of environmental factors and human ingenuity. But for those who dare to look beyond the accepted narrative, the suddenness of Sumer poses a profound challenge, an intellectual chasm that stretches across the millennia. It hints at something more, something that resists easy categorization within the neat boxes of conventional history. What if this rapid dawn, this inexplicable efflorescence of civilization, was not an isolated terrestrial marvel, but a chapter in a far grander, more complex narrative? A narrative that challenges our most fundamental assumptions about human origins, about our place in the cosmos, and about the very seeds of our intelligence, hinting that the roots of our sophisticated societies may lie in a story far more extraordinary than we have ever dared to imagine. And so, as we cast our gaze from the astonishing emergence of Sumer, from those first profound whispers of a meticulously structured civilization, the questions inevitably expand beyond the mere where or how of its genesis. They draw us into an even grander theater, demanding that we scrutinize the very stage upon which this drama of early humanity unfolded. For the story of Sumer, and indeed the story of humanity itself, begins not just with a people, but with a planet. A world so exquisitely poised,
so impossibly tailored it almost seems to defy the very notion of cosmic happenstance. Imagine, if you will, the ceaseless, indifferent ballet of the cosmos, an infinite expanse where countless stars ignite and fade, where nebulae swirl in silent grandeur, and where planets, in their unimaginable multitudes, are born from dust and gas. Most of these nascent worlds are destined for crushing anonymity, searingly hot infernos, frozen desolate wastes, or gas giants devoid of solid ground. Yet, amidst this cosmic indifference, there exists a peculiar, life-sustaining sweet spot, a specific band around a star, a zone, Goldilocks-like in its precision, not too close, not too far, but just right. This is the circumstellar habitable zone, more commonly known as the Goldilocks zone.
Its significance is absolute, a cosmic prerequisite without which the vibrant tapestry of life as we understand it simply cannot weave itself. Within this narrow, precious band, a planetary surface can maintain the temperature required for liquid water to exist. And liquid water, as every biologist will attest, is the primordial solvent, the universal medium for the complex chemical reactions that are the very bedrock of biological life. It is the crucible in which amino acids can form, proteins can fold, and cells can organize. Without it, the intricate dance of biochemistry grinds to a halt, and the promise of life, even in its simplest microbial forms, remains an unfulfilled cosmic dream. Earth, nestled perfectly within this Goldilocks embrace of our own sun, represents not just a fortunate placement, but the foundation of an incredibly unlikely chain of events, each link more improbable than the last. But to merely reside within this Goldilocks zone is a necessary, yet profoundly insufficient condition. Consider the sheer astronomical lottery of our planet's precise distance from the sun. It is not simply within the habitable band, but positioned with an almost breathtaking exactitude. A mere few percent closer and our oceans would boil away. Our atmosphere would be stripped by runaway greenhouse effects, transforming our world into a Venusian hellscape. A few percent further, and Earth would succumb to an ice age of terminal severity, freezing solid, locking away all moisture in an eternal frigid grip. This distance maintains a delicate equilibrium, allowing for the vast, circulating ocean currents and atmospheric dynamics that regulate global temperatures, fostering the dynamic, temperate climates essential for the prolonged evolution of complex organisms. It is a tightrope walk across a cosmic chasm, sustained with a grace that seems more like a masterstroke than a random stride. But to merely reside within this Goldilocks zone is a necessary yet profoundly insufficient condition. Then turn your gaze to our loyal celestial companion, the moon. It hangs in our night sky, a familiar, comforting presence. Yet its role in Earth's habitability is nothing short of monumental. Its sheer size, uniquely large relative to its parent planet, acts as a colossal gravitational anchor, stabilizing Earth's axial tilt. Without this steadying hand, our planet would wobble wildly, its tilt fluctuating dramatically over relatively short timescales. Such chaotic shifts would plunge entire continents into cycles of extreme, unpredictable climate, scorching summers followed by deep freeze winters, erasing any hope for stable ecosystems or the long, uninterrupted periods required for evolutionary development. The moon's presence is a cosmic ballet, a synchronized dance partner, ensuring the gentle rhythm of our seasons, the predictability of our climate, and thus the very possibility of sustained complex life. It is not just a rock in the sky, it is our planet's indispensable gyroscope. Beyond the gravitational ballet and the perfect stellar distance, an invisible yet utterly vital shield protects our world, Earth's unique magnetic field. Generated by the churning molten iron core deep within our planet,
This vast protective bubble extends thousands of miles into space, deflecting the relentless assault of the solar wind, a torrent of charged particles emanating from the sun and shielding us from deadly cosmic radiation. Without this powerful magnetosphere, our atmosphere would be gradually stripped away, much as Mars lost its once thicker gaseous envelope, leaving our surface exposed and inhospitable. The magnetic field not only preserves the air we breathe, but also protects the delicate DNA in every living cell from mutation and destruction. It is an extraordinary, self-renewing force field, a planetary guardian silently waging war against the harsh vacuum of space, making possible the intricate biochemistry that defines our existence. And what of the very air we breathe? The atmospheric composition that blankets our world in a breathable, life-sustaining embrace. It is a delicate gaseous envelope, a precise blend of nitrogen, oxygen, argon, and trace amounts of carbon dioxide and other compounds, each playing a critical role. The abundance of nitrogen acts as an inert diluent, moderating oxygen's reactivity. Oxygen, the very breath of complex life, is maintained at levels that are both invigorating and not overly combustible, a dangerously precise balance. Carbon dioxide, often maligned, but nonetheless a vital greenhouse gas, trapping just enough heat to keep Earth warm, but not so much as to trigger a runaway heating effect. This atmospheric mosaic also includes a thin yet crucial ozone layer, a molecular guardian filtering out the sun's most damaging ultraviolet radiation, allowing life to flourish on land without being seared. This is not a haphazard collection of gases. It is an intricately balanced chemical formula, meticulously calibrated to sustain a thriving biosphere.
When we consider these factors not in isolation, but as a harmonious, interdependent symphony, the Goldilocks zone, the precise orbital mechanics, the lunar stabilizer, the planetary magnetosphere, the breathable atmosphere, the argument for Earth's environment being not merely a random occurrence, but almost impossibly tailored for habitation, gains profound resonance. It evokes a sense of wonder, a feeling that we are not simply inhabitants of a random rock, but beneficiaries of a cosmic stroke of genius, or perhaps something more deliberate. This profound improbability is the core of the rare earth hypothesis. This scientific proposition posits that while simple microbial life might be abundant throughout the universe, the conditions necessary for the emergence and long-term sustenance of complex, intelligent life are extraordinarily rare, perhaps unique. It argues that the confluence of astrophysical and geological factors required for a planet to not just have life, but to nurture it to self-awareness is so vast, so improbable, that our very existence might be an astronomical fluke on a scale almost impossible to grasp. The rare earth hypothesis extends far beyond the Goldilocks zone and Earth's individual attributes. It considers the planet's place within its galaxy, not too close to the turbulent galactic core where radiation is lethal, nor too far in the metal-poor galactic fringes. It requires a stable stellar neighborhood, free from frequent supernova explosions. It demands a star of the right type, like our G-type sun, with a long, stable lifespan. It necessitates a particular planetary system architecture, with gas giants like Jupiter strategically placed in outer orbits to sweep away comets and asteroids that might otherwise bombard and sterilize inner worlds. Further still, the rare earth hypothesis emphasizes the critical role of geological processes. Plate tectonics, for instance, is not just a geological curiosity, it is a fundamental engine of life. It recycles nutrients, drives the carbon silicate cycle that regulates atmospheric CO2 and global temperature over geologic timescales, and is intimately linked to the generation of our life-saving magnetic field. A planet without plate tectonics might quickly become a geological dead end for complex life. The exact amount of water on Earth is also crucial. Too little, and it's a desert. Too much, and we'd be a water world without exposed land masses necessary for complex terrestrial ecosystems. Even the timing of events matters. The relatively late formation of an oxygen-rich atmosphere, the timely development of an ozone layer, and the avoidance of truly planet-sterilizing impacts over billions of years. Each of these represents a narrow, improbable window of opportunity. The cumulative probability of all these filters, these cosmic bottlenecks, aligning perfectly over billions of years for a single planet to not only sustain simple life, but to foster the very conditions for intelligence, is so astronomically small that it shifts the paradigm. It challenges the notion that life, especially complex, intelligent life, is an inevitability of cosmic evolution. Instead, it suggests that Earth, this vibrant oasis in the vast, empty cosmic ocean, is an almost impossible exception, a masterpiece of planetary engineering by chance alone. And it is this very improbability, this stunning fine-tuning, that gives rise to the most provocative argument of all, that Earth's environment is not merely a random occurrence, a fortunate roll of the cosmic dice, but hints at something more profound. It whispers of a deliberate design or placement, rather than pure, unadulterated chance. Could such an exquisite alignment of conditions, each perfectly calibrated, each indispensable, truly be the result of mere coincidence, amplified by the sheer scale of the universe? Or does the intricate, almost artisanal quality of our planet's life-sustaining mechanisms suggest an underlying purpose, an intentionality that transcends the cold equations of astrophysics? To consider Earth as a chosen vessel, a meticulously prepared cradle, transforms our understanding of our own home. It suggests that this stage, upon which humanity's earliest chapters were written, was not merely stumbled upon, but perhaps was meticulously set. This perspective, while challenging to conventional scientific materialism, finds a peculiar resonance with the profound mystery of Sumer's sudden blossoming. If an entire civilization could emerge with such startling rapidity, as we've seen, perhaps the very world they inhabited, this improbable jewel in the cosmic dark, was equally engineered into being. It encourages us to look beyond the easily explained, to embrace the potential for an infinitely grander narrative, where the very fabric of our reality, from the smallest cell to the planetary sphere, might harbor traces of an intelligence far beyond our current comprehension. This Earth, our home, then becomes not just a planet, but a central piece in a cosmic puzzle, a testament to conditions so profoundly unlikely that they beckon us to question the nature of chance itself and to consider the profound implications of a universe where design might precede destiny.
If the stage itself, this unique blue marble, seems impossibly set, almost a cosmic anomaly in its exquisite precision, then what of the principal actors who emerged upon it? We speak, of course, of humanity. For centuries, the scientific narrative has meticulously charted our journey, tracing the winding, often arduous path from early hominids to the complex, self-aware beings we are today. It is a story told in fossilized bone, in ancient tools, and in the ever-unfolding helix of our very DNA. Our scientific understanding typically begins with ancestors like Australopithecus, walking upright across the African savannas millions of years ago, their brains little larger than those of modern chimpanzees. From these beginnings, a slow, methodical progression appears to unfold. Homo habilis emerging with rudimentary stone tools, a slight increase in cranial capacity. Then Homo erectus, mastering fire, migrating out of Africa, their brain size expanding further, laying the groundwork for more sophisticated thought. Later, Neanderthals, robust and intelligent, adapted to colder climates, burying their dead, hinting at nascent spirituality. Each step, each evolutionary increment is meticulously documented, presenting a picture of gradual adaptation, incremental change, driven by environmental pressures and the relentless march of natural selection. This accepted timeline, stretching back millions of years, culminates in the appearance of Homo sapiens, modern humans, around 300,000 years ago, distinguished by even larger brains, more refined tool use, and the capacity for abstract thought. It is a story of slow, painstaking progress, a testament to the power of evolution, a grand unfolding drama that seemingly requires no external hand. Yet, within the very blueprint of this remarkably complex organism, the human being, lies an enduring mystery, a silent, perplexing anomaly that continues to challenge geneticists, the phenomenon of what has been controversially dubbed junk DNA. For decades, scientists observed that only a minuscule fraction, roughly 1 to 2%, of our vast human genome actively codes for proteins, the building blocks of life. The remaining 98% or more was, for a long time, considered non-coding DNA, a vast expanse of genetic material whose purpose remained opaque, seemingly superfluous, a collection of evolutionary detritus. It was thought to be simply redundant sequences, viral insertions, or genetic relics left over from millennia of evolutionary trials and errors, hence the term junk. Why would an organism as finely tuned as Homo sapiens carry such an immense amount of seemingly useless genetic baggage? The enduring mystery of this junk DNA continues to spark intense debate. While recent research has begun to assign functions to some of these non-coding regions, identifying roles in gene regulation, chromosome structure, and epigenetic inheritance, the sheer volume and the precise purpose of much of it remains stubbornly elusive. It's akin to finding an impossibly vast library where only a few books are clearly understood, and the rest are filled with seemingly random characters or indecipherable script. Is it truly junk, or is it a hidden archive, an instruction manual with vast unread chapters? The question lingers. Could this immense, perplexing genetic surplus be more than mere evolutionary leftovers? Could it instead be a testament to a grander, more intricate design, perhaps a storehouse of latent information, or even a deliberate, albeit dormant, component of a larger, as yet unveiled blueprint? The enigma of our non-coding DNA, therefore, stands as a silent challenge to our complete understanding of our own biological foundation, an open question mark in the very code of life itself. Even as geneticists grapple with the internal riddles of our DNA, the external narrative of human development presents an equally compelling and perhaps even more perplexing discontinuity. For millions of years, the evolutionary trajectory of hominids was characterized by gradual changes, incremental increases in brain size, slow refinements in tool use, a painstaking adaptation to a changing environment. But then something extraordinary happened. Roughly between 70,000 and 50,000 years ago, a period often referred to as the Great Leap Forward or the Cognitive Revolution, humanity's development underwent an astonishing, almost explosive acceleration. This was not merely an upward trend. It was a sudden, dramatic spike, a qualitative shift that seems disproportionate to the preceding slow burn of evolutionary progress. Suddenly, and seemingly without obvious precedent, Homo sapiens exhibited an unparalleled surge in cognitive abilities, abstract thought, and technological innovation. Complex symbolic language, a hallmark of our species, appears to emerge in its full, intricate form, enabling unprecedented levels of communication and social organization.
We find evidence of sophisticated tool-making that goes far beyond mere functionality, exhibiting aesthetic considerations and specialized design. Art flourishes, intricate cave paintings depicting animals and rituals, Venus figurines hinting at spiritual beliefs, personal adornments like beads and pendants. Burial practices become more elaborate, suggesting a growing awareness of mortality and perhaps a belief in an afterlife. Trade networks extend over vast distances, indicating complex social structures and economic foresight. This wasn't merely survival. This was a flourishing of culture, creativity, and intellect,
on a scale never before witnessed in any hominid species. The question naturally arises, what ignited this sudden, almost miraculous spark? Was it a purely internal, emergent property of an evolving brain? Or could an external catalyst have played a role in accelerating such a profound transformation? The Great Leap Forward remains one of the most compelling enigmas in our species' history, defying a purely gradualist explanation. This sudden, inexplicable surge in human capabilities leads us to confront the profound genetic and developmental differences that demarcate Homo sapiens from our closest primate relatives. On a purely genetic level, the divergence appears surprisingly small. Chimps and humans share between 98 and 99% of their DNA, a fact often cited as compelling evidence for our shared evolutionary ancestry. Yet despite this striking genetic proximity, the phenotypic and cognitive gulf between us is vast, undeniable, and in many respects still largely unexplained by purely gradualist evolutionary models. Consider the chasm in capabilities. While chimpanzees exhibit intelligence, tool use, and complex social behaviors, they lack the capacity for sophisticated abstract reasoning, symbolic language, cumulative cultural evolution, or the monumental technological innovation that defines humanity. They do not build cities, write epic poems, or contemplate the cosmos. Our upright gait, unique vocal apparatus, vastly more complex brain structure, despite only marginal differences in overall size, and our unparalleled capacity for self-awareness and foresight set us apart in ways that seem disproportionate to the minute genetic differences. How could such a seemingly minor genetic divergence lead to such an enormous leap in cognitive and developmental complexity in such a relatively short evolutionary time frame? This disparity, this almost inexplicable qualitative leap, pushes the boundaries of conventional evolutionary explanations. It is here that the provocative question, almost an echo from the ancient whispers of Sumer, truly takes root. Could this rapid singular advancement, this profound deviation from a seemingly gradual evolutionary path, be indicative of an external, targeted genetic intervention or modification? If Earth's environment appears deliberately fine-tuned for life, and if humanity's emergence shows such an uncharacteristically swift and radical acceleration, might there be a connection? Could the Great Leap Forward be less of a spontaneous evolutionary burst and more of a deliberate genetic recalibration? This is not to dismiss the immense body of scientific work on evolution, but rather to ask if there are chapters missing, variables not yet accounted for in our grand narrative. Could the vast, seemingly silent stretches of junk DNA hold the dormant codes or the precise instructions that were activated or implanted to spark this unparalleled leap in consciousness and capability? The genetic and developmental blueprint of Homo sapiens then becomes not just a record of our past, but potentially a cryptic message about our origins, inviting us to look beyond the purely terrestrial and consider the audacious possibility of a guided hand in our own creation. If the journey through Earth's improbably tailored existence and humanity's own perplexing leap in cognitive prowess leads us to contemplate the radical notion of an external hand, a deliberate modification, then where might we find the ancient echoes of such a genesis? Where in the deep past do the records speak not of a gradual unfolding, but of a purposeful forging? For answers, we must turn our gaze back to Mesopotamia, to the very dawn of written history, and confront the words etched into clay not as mere allegories, but as chronicles demanding a new, literal interpretation. It is here, amidst the unearthed libraries of Sumer and Akkad, that we encounter texts of staggering antiquity. The Enuma Elish, the Babylonian epic of creation, itself a direct descendant and retelling of older Sumerian narratives, and the Epic of Atrahasis, a profound account of humanity's origins and early struggles. These are not ephemeral stories passed down through generations of oral tradition. They are meticulously inscribed documents, painstakingly preserved,
offering what their original authors clearly intended as historical accounts, laying bare the genesis of their world and the very species that populated it. If we dare to set aside our modern preconceptions and read them, quite simply, for what they say, a narrative emerges that is as unsettling as it is profound.
These ancient tablets, with their intricate cuneiform script, speak of a time before humankind, when a celestial race known as the Anunnaki, a name that translates powerfully as those who from heaven to earth came, descended upon our planet. Their arrival was not a gentle visitation, but an arduous enterprise. They journeyed across the cosmos from a world beyond our immediate recognition, drawn by a specific need. Their purpose on Earth, as detailed in these venerable texts, was not one of idle observation or benevolent curiosity. It was a mission born of necessity, of survival for their own distant planet, a need to extract precious resources. And among these, none was more crucial, more frequently mentioned than gold. The narratives paint a vivid picture of the Anunnaki's initial endeavors. Upon arrival, they found themselves engaged in monumental tasks, toiling in the Apsu, the primitive mines, digging and excavating the earth. They established settlements, built infrastructure, and grappled with the raw, untamed wilderness of primordial earth. Yet the physical demands of this enterprise were immense, a burden too heavy for the lower-ranking Anunnaki, known as the Igigi. The Epic of Atrahasis specifically recounts the growing discontent, the weariness, the bitter complaints of these celestial workers. Their labor was heavy, the misery was much. Eventually, their resentment boiled over into a rebellion, a dramatic refusal to continue the back-breaking work. It was this crisis, this desperate need for a subservient workforce, that led to a pivotal decision among the Anunnaki High Command. A council was convened, and the solution proposed was audacious, almost beyond human comprehension. They would not simply find existing laborers, they would create them. They would fashion a new species, a primitive worker, or Lulu, as the Sumerian texts often refer to them, to take over the arduous tasks of mining and maintenance. This was to be a species designed solely for service, capable of understanding commands, possessing strength, and, crucially, possessing a capacity for self-replication. At the heart of this extraordinary undertaking were two principal Anunnaki figures whose roles in this ancient Genesis narrative are meticulously detailed. First, there was Enki, known also as Ea in Babylonian texts, often depicted as a brilliant scientist, a master of wisdom, and a geneticist among his people. It was Enki who proposed the method of creation, identifying a pre-existing hominid form on Earth, a primitive being lacking the sophistication for complex tasks, but possessing the basic biological framework. The tablets describe this as clay, a symbolic reference to the basic genetic material of the indigenous creatures, the early hominids that roamed the earth. Alongside Enki, a second crucial figure emerged, Ninhursag, also known as Ninti, the Lady of Life, or the Lady who gives birth. She was the chief medical officer, the genetic engineer, the goddess tasked with overseeing the biological processes of this creation. Together, Enki and Ninhursag, guided by the collective decision of the Anunnaki Council, embarked upon what can only be described, through a modern lens, as a sophisticated genetic experiment. The method of creation described in the Epic of Atrahasis is startlingly precise and provocative. It details the mixing of Anunnaki essence with the clay of the primitive earth creature. Specifically, the texts speak of taking the blood of an Anunnaki god, a living essence, the very blueprint of their being, and blending it with the raw material of the indigenous hominid. This was not a simple act of forming a figure from mud, as often depicted in more allegorical creation myths. Instead, it was an intricate procedure, performed within a designated house of Shimti, a house where fate is determined, a clear ancient analog for a laboratory.
The narrative goes further, describing how 14 birth goddesses, under the guidance of Ninhursag, participated in the process, preparing the mixtures, shaping the new beings in birth bricks, and then bringing them forth. The blood of the Anunnaki was described as fixed into the clay, implying a permanent alteration, a genetic infusion. This deliberate mixing, this infusion of a superior genetic code into a less evolved form, speaks with chilling resonance to modern concepts of genetic engineering, of manipulating DNA to imbue a new creation with desired traits and capabilities. The result was the Lulu Amelu, the mixed man, the first Homo sapiens, a being capable of speech, reason, and, most importantly for the Anunnaki, the ability to perform complex, sustained labor.
It was purely pragmatic, even utilitarian. Humanity was fashioned to be a slave race, a diligent workforce, a primitive worker, to relieve the Anunnaki of their mining burdens. The tablets consistently reiterate this purpose. Let him bear the yoke of the gods. Let him carry the load of the Anunnaki. Their primary task was to dig, to extract gold from the earth, to process it, and to provide the vital resource their creators so desperately needed. This gold, the texts hint, was essential for the survival of the Anunnaki's own distant home world, perhaps used to shield its atmosphere, or for some other technological purpose we can only speculate upon. Thus, the Sumerian tablets, far from presenting a whimsical myth, lay bare a precise, detailed account of Genesis that challenges every conventional understanding of human origins. They describe not an act of divine fiat, but a scientific intervention, a deliberate genetic modification performed by an advanced extraterrestrial race. They posit that the sudden, great leap forward, the inexplicable acceleration of human intelligence and capability we glimpsed in the previous act, was not a random evolutionary anomaly, but the direct result of a calculated biological intervention. We were not merely born of Earth, we were engineered for it and for them, specifically to serve a purpose woven into the very fabric of our being from our earliest inception. This is the narrative that the oldest written records on Earth present, not as a whisper, but as a bold, undeniable declaration from the deep past. The tapestry of life on Earth, as we often conceive it, unfolds with a gentle, if arduous, linearity, a slow, incremental climb from primordial ooze to complex consciousness. Yet this comforting narrative masks a far more tumultuous reality, one punctuated by moments of unimaginable violence, by cosmic hammer blows that have repeatedly reshaped our world. If indeed the blueprint for humanity was, in some profound sense, engineered, then the question inevitably arises: how might such a legacy persist across the millennia, when the very planet itself has endured cycles of destruction and renewal so absolute, so devastating, as to obliterate almost all traces of what came before? Earth, it seems, has its own mechanisms for resetting the clock, for wiping the slate clean. Cast your gaze back into the abyss of deep time, and you will discern not a smooth continuum, but a series of profound cataclysmic ruptures. Our planet's history is scarred by no fewer than 5 major mass extinction events, each a geological epoch defined by the near annihilation of life itself. Consider the Ordovician Silurian extinction some 443 million years ago, when colossal ice sheets locked away vast quantities of Earth's water, leading to plummeting sea levels and a dramatic loss of marine biodiversity. An estimated 85% of all species perished,
leaving the oceans a desolate testament to a world transformed. Then, roughly 375 million years ago, the late Devonian extinction unfolded, a protracted crisis characterized by fluctuating sea levels, oxygen depletion in the oceans, and potentially widespread volcanic activity, extinguishing nearly 75% of all species, particularly devastating coral reefs and marine life. The most catastrophic of these, the Great Dying of the Permian-Triassic period, approximately 252 million years ago, stands as a stark testament to planetary vulnerability. Scientists posit a combination of colossal volcanic eruptions in Siberia, spewing forth unimaginable quantities of greenhouse gases, leading to runaway global warming, ocean acidification, and widespread anoxia. This epoch witnessed the eradication of an astonishing 96% of all marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species, a biological holocaust that brought life to the very brink. Generations passed, and then around 201 million years ago, the Triassic-Jurassic extinction claimed roughly half of all existing species, clearing the evolutionary path for the dinosaurs to rise to dominance, potentially triggered by massive volcanic events associated with the breakup of the supercontinent Pangaea. Finally, the most famous of all, the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction, 66 million years ago, indelibly linked to the impact of a colossal asteroid off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. This single cosmic event plunged the Earth into an impact winter, igniting global wildfires, unleashing tsunamis of unprecedented scale, and ultimately wiping out roughly 75% of plant and animal species, including the dinosaurs, paving the way for the age of mammals. Each of these events represents not merely a downturn, but a profound planetary reset, a wholesale culling that fundamentally reshaped the trajectory of life, leaving behind only the most resilient, and in their wake, a void for new forms to emerge. If these cataclysms could eradicate entire classes of life, what then of nascent civilizations, of early human endeavors, however sophisticated? Their fragility in the face of such overwhelming forces seems almost predetermined.
Yet, we need not delve solely into the deep past to witness such transformative power. Closer to our own recorded history, a more recent and perhaps more haunting cataclysm unfolded: the Younger Dryas event, a period of abrupt and severe global cooling that gripped the Earth around 12,800 years ago. This was not a gradual climate shift, but a sudden, violent lurch back into glacial conditions, occurring with astonishing speed. For centuries, the cause of this abrupt reversal, which interrupted a warming trend at the end of the last ice age, remained a profound mystery. But in recent decades, compelling scientific evidence has converged around a radical and disturbing hypothesis. The Younger Dryas was triggered by a cosmic impact, or more precisely, by a shower of cometary or asteroidal fragments impacting Earth or exploding as colossal airbursts in its atmosphere. The evidence for this Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is as widespread as it is provocative. Across vast swathes of North and South America, extending into Europe and the Middle East, a distinct geological layer, often dubbed the black mat, has been identified. This thin, dark stratum, dated precisely to the onset of the Younger Dryas, is replete with anomalous materials. Nanodiamonds, microscopic spheres of carbon and metal that form only under extreme temperatures and pressures. Fullerenes, spherical carbon molecules sometimes containing extraterrestrial helium, and elevated concentrations of iridium, an element rare on Earth's surface but common in meteorites. Furthermore, vast quantities of microscopic magnetic spherules and melt glass have been discovered within this layer, formed from terrestrial rock that was flash heated to temperatures exceeding 1700 degrees Celsius, conditions only achievable in cosmic impacts or airbursts of incredible power. This signature of extraterrestrial bombardment and extreme heat is not localized. It is a global marker, a testament to an event of immense, planet-altering scale. The immediate aftermath would have been cataclysmic. If fragments struck the continental ice sheets, the sudden release of colossal amounts of fresh water into the North Atlantic would have disrupted the oceanic currents, triggering the rapid global cooling. Widespread wildfires, ignited by atmospheric explosions or ground impacts, would have blackened the skies, plunging the Earth into an impact winter and further exacerbating the cooling. The disruption to the global climate would have been immediate and profound, transforming lush landscapes into frozen tundras, causing vast migrations, and leading to the extinction of much of the North American megafauna, including mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and dire wolves. For the early human societies then flourishing, such as the Clovis culture in North America, this event would have been an unprecedented societal disruption, fracturing their way of life, forcing them into desperate struggles for survival, and likely leading to a profound loss of knowledge, language, and technology that define a complex society. Libraries of wisdom would turn to dust or be lost to the rising waters. Oral traditions would fracture as communities perished, and the very memory of a sophisticated past could dissolve into fragmented myths whispered across generations. The sheer scale of geological time, combined with the Earth's relentless processes of erosion, sedimentation, and tectonic activity, serves as a master obliterator, capable of burying entire epochs of human ambition and achievement, leaving behind a seemingly pristine wilderness or a sparsely populated frontier for the next civilization to emerge. It is against this backdrop of cosmic violence and geological amnesia that we must re-examine some of humanity's most enduring narratives. Across virtually every ancient culture, from the Americas to Mesopotamia, from the indigenous peoples of Australia to the ancient texts of India, there persists a universal, haunting tale: the Great Flood.
These are not merely isolated local myths, they are global echoes of a shared cataclysmic memory, narratives that speak of the world being submerged, of humanity brought to the brink, of a profound reset event. The Gilgamesh flood narrative, preserved in Sumerian cuneiform, as we have seen, details an event of such terrifying scale that it obliterated nearly all life, a decision made by the gods to cleanse the earth. But rather than dwelling on the divine motivations, let us consider the event itself through a geological lens. The description within the Gilgamesh epic of torrential rains lasting for days, of waters rising to overwhelm the highest mountains, of entire landscapes dissolving into a swirling chaos, aligns powerfully with the potential destructive fallout of an event like the Younger Dryas impact. Imagine an immediate, rapid sea level rise triggered by the sudden melting of massive ice sheets, combined with unprecedented meteorological disturbances leading to atmospheric darkening and ceaseless rain. Coastal cities, built low to the plains, would be utterly inundated, their structures dissolving into the churning waters. Rivers would swell beyond recognition, transforming into inland seas, swallowing fertile valleys and all human habitation within them. The very ground would become unstable, leading to widespread landslides and geological upheaval. The Gilgamesh narrative speaks of a time when the great gods unleashed this destruction, and Utnapishtim, a chosen survivor, builds an ark to save a remnant of humanity and all creatures. Stripped of its mythological overlay, this account could be seen as a chillingly accurate description of a world reeling from a cosmic impact and its resultant global cooling and subsequent meltwater floods, a world transformed, reset, leaving only fragmented memories and a few survivors to repopulate a devastated planet,
carrying with them only the barest vestiges of a more advanced past. The global synchronicity of these flood myths becomes far more than mere coincidence. It suggests not independent local events, but a common, terrifying experience shared by early human populations across the globe. A memory so profound, so devastating, that it became woven into the very fabric of their cultural consciousness. These ancient narratives, once dismissed as mere fables, might in fact be the last surviving oral and written histories of a time when Earth itself underwent a profound transformation, erasing previous advancements and knowledge, leaving succeeding generations to piece together their existence from the shattered remnants. The evidence of Earth's cyclical cataclysms, therefore, offers a compelling framework for understanding the profound silences and abrupt appearances in human history. It reminds us that our planet is not a static stage, but a dynamic, often violent cosmic arena, capable of not only nurturing life, but also, with terrifying efficiency, resetting the course of destiny, obliterating all but the most persistent echoes of oblivion. Even as the Earth reset itself, silencing civilizations and obscuring histories beneath layers of sediment and myth, certain echoes, certain indelible marks, resisted the oblivion. They are the unwritten chapters, scattered clues that defy the official narrative, challenging us to look beyond conventional timelines and consider a hidden, shared past. For across the continents, from the highest plateaus to the deepest deserts, stand monumental architectural marvels, enigmatic in their precision and scale, whose very existence challenges the known capabilities of the ancient peoples to whom they are attributed. These are not merely impressive feats of engineering. They are questions carved in stone, asking us to reevaluate the foundations of human technological development. Consider the site of Pumapunku, nestled high in the Bolivian Andes. Here, massive blocks of granite and andesite, some weighing over 100 tons, lie scattered. But within their disarray lies a staggering testament to a forgotten mastery. These stones, cut with an almost impossible precision, feature intricate interlocking shapes, perfect right angles, and drill holes of uniform depth and diameter that seem to have been achieved with technology far beyond simple chisels and hammers. There are no visible tool marks that correspond to the Bronze Age tools available to the local Tiwanaku culture, to whom the site is traditionally attributed. Their smooth, polished surfaces and razor-sharp internal angles suggest a level of stoneworking sophistication that seems to appear from nowhere, leaving behind a silence that screams of an erased technology. Then we turn our gaze to the ancient sands of Egypt, to the monumental structures of the Giza Plateau.
The Great Pyramid, in particular, remains an enigma of astronomical alignment and unparalleled construction. While conventional archaeology attributes its construction to millions of laborers over decades, the question of how remains profoundly unsettling. Granite blocks weighing tens of tons were quarried hundreds of miles away, transported and then lifted and placed with a precision that allows a razor blade to barely slip between them. The sheer scale, the perfect orientation to cardinal points, and the intricate internal passages demonstrate a knowledge of geometry, mathematics, and even seismic engineering that challenges the widely accepted narrative of early Egyptian capabilities. These are not rough-hewn monuments. They are incredibly precise, almost manufactured structures that speak of a profound understanding of physics and engineering far beyond the known tools and techniques of the Bronze Age. And yet, perhaps the most profoundly unsettling revelation comes from the Anatolian Plateau in modern-day Turkey, at a site called Göbekli Tepe, dating back over 12,000 years to a time long before the accepted dawn of agriculture, before pottery, before settled communities, stands a monumental complex of T-shaped megaliths. Some weighing dozens of tons, these pillars are arranged in intricate circles, adorned with sophisticated reliefs of animals and abstract symbols. This site predates Stonehenge by millennia, challenging the very notion of how and when complex religious and architectural endeavors began. Conventional history tells us that such large-scale communal efforts and advanced artistic expression
only became possible after the development of agriculture and settled societies. Göbekli Tepe turns this timeline on its head, suggesting that organized, sophisticated cultures capable of immense collective labor and abstract thought existed at a time when humanity was supposedly still in its hunter-gatherer phase. The sheer audacity of its construction at such an early date begs the question, what drove these primitive people to erect such a profound and complex sacred landscape? And from where did they derive the organizational capacity and the advanced understanding to do so? These sites, Pumapunku, the Giza Pyramids, Göbekli Tepe, are not isolated anomalies. They are globally dispersed, separated by vast distances and millennia, yet they share a common thread. They defy easy explanation, pointing to a level of engineering, astronomical knowledge, and organizational capacity that seems to have appeared, fully formed, at the very edge of recorded history, or even before it. They whisper of a forgotten chapter, a period of advanced understanding that somehow predates our current historical narrative. This whisper grows louder when we examine ancient maps, cartographic curiosities that depict land masses and geographical features that should have been utterly unknown to their purported creators. Among the most famous is the Piri Reis map, compiled in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, which depicts the coastlines of West Africa, South America, and most astonishingly, a portion of Antarctica, accurately portrayed without its ice cap. The problem here is profound. Antarctica was not officially discovered until 1820, and its coastline beneath the ice cap was not thoroughly charted until seismic surveys in the 20th century. How could a 16th century map contain such accurate information about a continent, and specifically its subglacial topography that would only be revealed by modern technology centuries later? Similarly, the Orontius Phineus map of 1531, another marvel of Renaissance cartography, also depicts an ice-free Antarctica with rivers and mountain ranges that correspond remarkably well to modern geophysical surveys. These maps, compiled by individuals supposedly operating within the limited geographical knowledge of their time, seem to draw from older, incredibly accurate source maps that have since vanished. They are not merely speculative drawings. They exhibit a level of geographical precision and an understanding of the Earth's true form that suggests a vantage point, perhaps even an aerial one, and a global surveying capability that simply did not exist in their era. How did this knowledge survive, passed down through obscure channels, to resurface in the age of exploration? These architectural impossibilities and anachronistic maps collectively hint at a tantalizing yet unsettling possibility: the existence of a highly sophisticated, perhaps even global civilization, or a shared advanced knowledge base that flourished in a pre-Diluvian era. This was a time before the great cataclysms, before the Younger Dryas impact discussed earlier, which reset global conditions and plunged humanity into a new dark age. The artifacts and cartographic records, like fragments of a lost library, suggest that a profound understanding of the Earth, its geography, and even advanced construction techniques was once widespread. This wasn't a case of multiple independent civilizations spontaneously developing identical, impossibly advanced skills.
Instead, it implies a singular common source of information, a master template of knowledge that was either disseminated globally or passed down through a surviving remnant of an earlier, highly advanced culture. The great silence of the past was not absolute. Certain echoes, certain indelible signatures managed to persist, challenging our linear view of human progress. This notion of a shared pre-cataclysmic knowledge base gains even more weight when we consider the striking synchronicity of certain astronomical alignments and mythological motifs across disparate ancient cultures. From the precise celestial orientations of the pyramids in Egypt and Mesoamerica to the intricate stellar maps encoded within the epic narratives of indigenous tribes. There's a recurring theme of profound astronomical understanding. Many ancient sites are meticulously aligned not just with solstices and equinoxes, but with more complex celestial phenomena, such as the precession of the equinoxes, a 25,920-year cycle that requires millennia of observation to accurately chart. This is not casual stargazing. This is sophisticated astronomy, demanding generations of dedicated study and complex calculations. How did cultures separated by oceans and vast expanses of time arrive at such identical, advanced astronomical insights? It suggests a common teaching, a shared legacy of celestial wisdom that transcended cultural boundaries. Furthermore, the myths and legends themselves, often dismissed as mere fables, reveal a deeply resonant pattern. Across civilizations from Sumer to the Mayans, from ancient India to the Pacific Islanders, we find recurring motifs of sky gods or visitors from the heavens who descended to Earth. These beings are consistently depicted as bringers of knowledge, architects of civilization, and even direct participants in the creation or modification of humanity. They impart wisdom, teach agriculture, introduce laws, and lay the foundations for early societies. These narratives often speak of a profound connection between the heavens and the earth, of beings whose true home was among the stars. While the specific names and cultural trappings differ, the underlying narrative arc, the arrival of technologically advanced, often benevolent, or at least purposeful entities from the cosmos who directly influenced human development, remains strikingly consistent. This synchronicity in advanced astronomical knowledge and the pervasive narratives of celestial intervention points to something far grander than mere coincidence. It suggests a common, non-terrestrial origin or influence that shaped early human understanding, providing a foundation for their subsequent development. It implies that humanity's trajectory was not merely a product of blind evolutionary chance, but rather a carefully guided, or at least heavily influenced, experiment. These global anomalies, these unwritten chapters in stone and parchment and myth, therefore become pieces of a monumental puzzle. They challenge us to look beyond the accepted narrative of humanity's slow, arduous climb from primitive beginnings, and instead confront the possibility of an infinitely more complex, interconnected, and indeed cosmic origin story. They are the quiet, persistent voices of a past that refuses to stay buried, demanding a reevaluation of everything we thought we knew about ourselves and our place in the universe. The journey through ancient Sumerian whispers, the cosmic improbability of our home, the sudden leap in our own genetic tapestry, and the global echoes of a forgotten past has led us to a precipice, a vantage point from which the very edifice of our understanding of humanity trembles. For if the narratives etched into the oldest clay tablets, if the inexplicable acceleration of our cognitive abilities, if the very design of our planet were not merely accidents of the cosmos, but instead threads of an intentional design, then the implications ripple across every facet of our self-perception. This is not a casual question. It is a profound philosophical earthquake challenging the bedrock assumptions upon which millennia of human thought have been built. The very notion of human uniqueness, long held as an article of faith in our journey of self-discovery, is thrown into stark relief. If we are, as these ancient texts suggest, the product of an external, sophisticated intervention, then our story is not one of solitary ascent from primordial soup, but rather a chapter in a much larger extraterrestrial saga. We become not the lone pioneers of consciousness, but potentially a carefully cultivated species, a deliberate outcome of a grander design.
This paradigm shift redefines our place in the universe, moving us from the isolated pinnacle of evolution to a potentially integrated, albeit junior, member of a cosmic community.
Furthermore, the concept of self-determination, so central to our modern identity, faces a radical reevaluation. If our genesis was engineered, were we truly free to choose our path from the outset? Or were we, in some fundamental way, imbued with a purpose, a directive encoded within our very being? The idea that our ancestors were created as primitive workers, as the Sumerian texts suggest, not only recontextualizes our origin, but also poses unsettling questions about the nature of free will and the extent of our autonomy. Are we merely fulfilling a long-forgotten program? Or have we, through our own struggles and advancements, transcended the initial parameters of our creation? These are questions that force us to confront not just our history, but our deepest understanding of what it means to be human, to be conscious, to be free. And then there is the randomness of evolution itself. For centuries, the scientific consensus has posited life's development as a series of incremental, unguided adaptations, driven by natural selection. But if humanity's cognitive leap, our sudden cultural flowering, or even the extraordinary fine-tuning of Earth points to intelligent manipulation, then the tapestry of evolution reveals a hidden guiding hand. This doesn't necessarily negate evolution, rather it suggests an intricate, perhaps orchestrated evolution, where certain inflection points were influenced or even jump-started. It implies a universe less governed by pure chance and more by an intelligence so vast, so ancient, that it can operate across cosmic timescales, leaving signatures in our genes, our geology, and our earliest narratives. The implications extend beyond biology, bleeding into theology, cosmology, and our entire perception of universal order. This profound challenge to our existential framework demands a critical reevaluation of established scientific and historical paradigms. For too long, much of what we have uncovered from ancient civilizations, their advanced knowledge, their perplexing architectural feats, their detailed creation myths, has been compartmentalized, dismissed as mere allegory, or explained away by convenient, albeit sometimes strained, conventional theories. The sophisticated astronomical knowledge embedded in ancient cultures, for instance, or the unexplainable precision of megalithic structures were often considered anomalies, curiosities safely outside the prevailing narrative of gradual human development. But what if these anomalies are, in fact, the most potent clues? What if the very act of dismissing ancient texts as mythology has prevented us from recognizing them as potential historical chronicles, encoded truths passed down through generations? The literal interpretation of Sumerian accounts, which describe beings from the heavens genetically modifying early hominids, flies in the face of orthodox archaeology and evolutionary biology. Yet, a truly open-minded approach, one courageous enough to peer beyond accepted boundaries, would entertain the possibility that these texts are not fantastical imaginings, but records of actual events, however extraordinary. This demands a willingness to revisit archaeological findings with a new lens, to scrutinize ancient texts not for what they ought to say according to our current understanding, but for what they actually state, even if those statements are deeply uncomfortable. It calls for a scientific humility, acknowledging that our current paradigms, however robust, may not encompass the full spectrum of reality, particularly when faced with evidence that hints at an infinitely grander and more complex cosmic narrative. This shift in perspective is perhaps the most exhilarating and daunting of all. It invites us to move beyond seeing ourselves as merely products of blind evolutionary chance, an accidental ripple in the cosmic ocean,
Instead, we might begin to perceive ourselves as a legacy, an inheritance from beings whose scientific and technological prowess transcended our current comprehension. We could be an experiment, a grand project set in motion by an intelligence seeking to understand the universe through its own creations. Or, perhaps most profoundly, we could be a stewardship, entrusted with a specific role within a cosmic hierarchy, charged with the care of this impossibly tailored planet, or even with the perpetuation of a genetic lineage that traces back to the stars themselves.
This perspective elevates our existence from a fortunate happenstance to a potentially deliberate act, imbuing life with a deeper, more intentional meaning. It transforms humanity's story from a solitary struggle on a lonely planet to a potentially integrated part of an intergalactic tapestry, a participant in a cosmic drama far more ancient and expansive than we have ever dared to imagine. The question shifts from where did we come from to what is our purpose in this grand design? What is our role in the cosmos that potentially birthed us? Ultimately, the insight gleaned from this journey is not a definitive answer, not a new dogma to replace the old. Instead, it is a profound call to fundamentally rethink our identity, our purpose, and our relationship to the cosmos itself. It is an urgent invitation to open our minds to the potential for an infinitely grander, more complex origin story than currently accepted, one that threads together scientific anomaly, archaeological mystery, and ancient wisdom into a coherent, albeit challenging, narrative. The relentless quest for historical truth, traditionally focused on unearthing facts and timelines, transmutes into an urgent, deeply personal re-examination of self within the vast, bewildering canvas of the universe. It is a quest that moves beyond the mere reconstruction of past events and delves into the very essence of who we are. Are we truly alone? Are we truly the highest form of intelligence in our immediate cosmic vicinity? Are the stories of our ancestors, so rich with celestial visitors and divine interventions, merely primitive attempts to explain the inexplicable? Or are they echoes of a truth we have simply forgotten or perhaps deliberately suppressed? This re-examination is not about seeking easy answers, but about embracing the questions themselves. It is about understanding that the pursuit of our origins is not just an academic exercise, but a pilgrimage into the heart of our own being. For if we are a legacy, an experiment, a stewardship, then our ultimate purpose may not just lie in understanding our past, but in consciously shaping our future, guided by the profound and exhilarating possibility that our story began not in isolation, but in the luminous embrace of the cosmos. The echoes of Sumerian clay tablets, the silent testament of an engineered Earth, and the inexplicable complexity of our own human blueprint all converge to whisper one intoxicating truth. The universe is far stranger, far more intelligent, and infinitely more intricately connected than we have ever dared to believe. And in its grand design, our own story may yet be its most profound and humbling revelation.